think you can use the Stones as markers. They certainly captured the times. The hippie, peace, love, acid thing was long gone, and there were different times. There was something in the air then, and Coppola was making Apocalypse Now at the same time. There was definitely the sense that the 60s didn't work, and that you either had to blow up the system or flee from it.
From the artwork to the music, it was a Rolling Stones record that wasn't the big popular album.
What year was it? 72?
I know the folklore, obviously.
They were getting away from, running away from England.
Why did they, so they literally got booted out. English tax exiles, this would be a popular English rock and roll story.
They had to go and almost implode in a way. The sense of being exiled, the sense of being, you can't go home. You can't go home, and I think this music reflects that.
He's going the wrong way. We used to go that way. Let's go the way we used to go.
When I started talking about making this film, I said, we're never going to do this. We're never going to go to where we recorded it.
That was your booth there. You lived in there.
I wasn't always, I was out here a lot. That was my booth.
Only when we let him.
We used to try experimental things, because it was a nice big group. One bloke could be over there doing something, while I was over here doing something else. So we did a lot of versions of things, we did them over and over.
Yeah.
The thing about Exile on Main Street is that there wasn't a sort of master plan. We just accumulated material knowing that we would use it one day. So we just came in and recorded. It's really weird you come back to something you did 40 years ago, whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. You see, you've got to look back at the big picture. You've got really good things out of it. Where were we?
That's about
boring, really. That old fucking recording sessions. Boring. Who gives a shit?
Lucifer of rock, the Pied Piper, the rebellious young millions who in the 1960s made rock music the official language of their unfocused but unmistakable affection from tradition. Middle America couldn't believe what was happening to their kids. They were listening to this music, buying their album covers with pictures of the boys lying around in homes, making parents sick, and people across the country thought, oh no, what can we expect next from the Stones?
American Top 40. The second biggest foreign act ever to hit the American charts has had 5 #1 singles and 10 consecutive gold LPs. The green stuff they gather isn't moss. The Rolling Stones.
Are you any more satisfied now?
Financially dissatisfied, sexually satisfied, philosophically trying.
We've been working hard. We were a very, very successful band. We sold a lot of records, but we weren't getting paid for it because record contracts are giving such a low royalty. But what we found out was that we had a management company guy who claimed that he owned everything we were doing in the past and always within the future. Touring, records, publishing, song, everything you can name. He said he owned it. So we had to get rid of him and try and get out of this ridiculous Byzantine mess that you've created for yourself.
We were supposed to live this life, limousines you had to have, and you had to have this, that and the other. And the money just flew, so you're always in debt. None of us had paid tax. We thought we had. We thought that had been dealt with. And it hadn't. Tax under the Labour government, Wilson, was 93%. If you earned £1 million, which we didn't, you'd end up with 70 grand. So it was impossible to earn enough money to pay back the inland revenue and stay here in England.
There was a feeling that you're being edged out of your own country. The British government was scared by the number of fans that we had, I suppose. They couldn't ignore that we were forced to be reckoned with. And sometime in the end of the year, we had to make the decision. It was like, well, we all wanted to keep going, right? So let's just move. I mean, we're not sort of rooted in England. We've been around the world half the time. Anyway.
We do this farewell tour of England, which is quite short and rather sort of sad. I can remember it so vividly. Everyone thought we were never going to come back. We had this kind of settled way of life for a touring band. We're all very kind of English in our ways. We're semi sort of suburban studios, there's nice country places to live in, and we were quite happy with that. I mean, sedate is not really right. It wasn't sedate, but it was pretty centred. This kind of lifestyle that we'd created for ourselves, which is really pleasant, had to come to an end.
How do you feel about immigrating?
I don't know. Are we really going?
Well, so they tell me. Do you want to leave England or not? No. You're not keen on it?
On what?
On going off to France. You keen on England?
In those days, if a band was big in England and then left England, that was the end of them. You didn't like them anymore. It's fucking curtains, you know. And then when you leave for tax, it's really not very cool.
I had to get out of the country to pay the tax incurred from me. That's why I had to leave. Yeah, that'd be a warning to you.
I started taking pictures of the Stones in 1964. I heard that the whole band was moving to the south of France. So a few weeks later, I was down in Nice. I asked, do you think it's possible to take a few pictures of the Stones in the south of France? And they gave me the name of the place, Villefranche-sur-Mer, Villa-Nelcote. I just went for an afternoon. I didn't know Keith and Anita were living down there. Of course, the house was beautiful and the light is incredible in the south of France in spring. At the end, I was thanking everybody for a beautiful afternoon and everything, and said, you can stay.
So how long were you there for?
6 months.
Admiral Byrd built it. It was an English admiral. Steps down to his own private boating dock. So I bought the speedboat. Splash out, I might be in jail next year, you know. Let's have some fun while I'm free. That whole era just before we moved to France was all kind of jittery, everything was up in the air. So in a way it was quite a relief to get to France and have that off the back, you know, and start learning French. Anita and Nelcote, well, first off, it was her first year with the baby, so she was being mother as well, and just sort of made sure the joint ran properly. I mean, she was the only one that could argue with the cook, Fat Jacques.
Until I had Marlon, we were just living in hotel rooms, moving around constantly. So for me, going to south of France was great. It was a wonderful place. It was very romantic. I lost totally my sense of time down there. It was like a kind of a dream, you know.
Every morning, Keith would be up at 8:30 in the morning, you know, and ready to jump in his car, looking after his kid, Marlon. No one knew the Stones in the south of France, so that they were able to act and live normally. We would go to the zoo, we would go to the beach. In the afternoon, Anita would look after Marlon, and Keith would play music. Every morning it would be the same. It was a normal way of life.
We've been seeing a lot in the music papers over here, some pictures of you and a very beautiful lady called Bianca, I believe. And all those rumours that you must have read about. Anything to say about them? No. In a word. Not really. What can I say, but rumour.
Mick Jagger came to Saint-Tropez for a quiet wedding, but it's been chaotic and it's brought the town to a standstill.
We knew that he was getting married, and we kind of knew the date. We're thinking, well, it's on Saturday or whenever it was, and Mick hasn't mentioned it or anything. Maybe we've got to buy him a wedding present. But then Mick called up the day before the wedding, and said, "Hi, Bill, I'd like to invite you to our wedding reception." And I said, "Okay, thanks." So it's a bit strange.
Stop taking photographs.
People came from all over the world for the wedding. Some musicians had to go back on tour or recording or something like that, and some other had nothing to do. So, like usual, it ends up at Keith House. In the south of France, if you have money, you can get anything. On the right, you've got Marseille, which is a very well-known place for illegal products. And on the other side, you've got Italy with the mafia. So you join the two together and you understand. I had a non-verbal agreement with Keith. This was very simple. You get high on music and photography. Stick to it. I take care of the rest.
At the beginning, it was kind of interesting and fun, but I think it was fantastically disruptive of the band, of our lives, of our social life, everything.
I hated leaving England. I did, because when you got down there, you had to try to replace everything you loved because it wasn't there. You had to sort of try to buy PG tips to make your tea. Then you had to deal with the French milk, which wasn't the same. Then you bought Bird's custard and Branston pickle and piccalilli and all the English things you were used to in your life. You had to import them all because they weren't there.
I'm not a very good mover, and I didn't like. And I was English, and I couldn't see living in France and that. I mean, the mental thing was a bit strange. You were in exile, particularly me. I couldn't speak French or anything.
I joined the Stones in May or June of '69, and so I hadn't earned enough money or done enough work on that level to have any kind of tax problems. But one of my most vivid memories is being flown there in our own private jet. I thought, my God, this is this is the high life. This is wonderful.
We looked around for studios, but especially in the south of France in the early 1971, there was no good room to work in, and the equipment was shabby, and nobody felt like comfortable in anywhere we looked at.
We tried various cinemas and public halls that one might rent. We just never found a suitable site, and in the end, we chose convenience, I suppose, over sound, and went for the basement of Keith's house.
We said, well, we have this truck, our own mobile studios. Why don't we just forget about them and just bring in the truck and work around the problems? At least this way we don't have to sort of ask for an interpreter every time we want to turn it off or on, Basically, I think that the Stones really felt like exiles. It's us against the world now. Fuck yeah. That was around the attitude, We said, well, we're all going to do this, boys. We're all just going to move out and be a family and do it, and here's the place. And in a way, it was energizing.
Well, I ended up there because that's where everybody else went. My boys I play rock and roll with left the country. We were invited to go, and we went. I didn't mind living between Nice and Monte Carlo. Didn't mind that a bit. Didn't mind all the pretty girls around the countryside there, man. Yes, sir, buddy. South of France and a young man in his 20s, rock and roll musician, that's a mighty good combination. I'm telling you, that's when you're shitting in tall cotton. Can you say that? I just said that.
The Stones during that time were quite spread out across the south of France. So it was a little difficult to get everyone together for long periods of the time. They'd get together for a few days, and then everybody would naturally want to go home and see their families. Then there was the fact that Bianca was in her late stages of pregnancy during that period, so Mick was constantly in Paris where Bianca was. So it wasn't the best conditions at all, and I remember we just couldn't seem to get started.
Andy, could you turn the piano up just a bit?
Charlie, did you get that?
I want to try that because it would be really nice to change the drum sound when it comes back in again, you know? Yeah.
I just moved to France and I used to have to drive like a 6.5, 7-hour drive from where I live on these little roads. I couldn't do it every night, you know, play and go home, so I lived with Keith. I lived in a room upstairs and Keith lived in a huge bedroom up above that. And it was it was pretty together, really, in a mad sort of way. We would work any time in 24 hours. So if it was 11 o'clock at night, it would go for another 12 hours, or if it was 12 o'clock midday, it would go for 12 hours, you know, whatever time. That's why you had to live there.
I'm 21 years old, and now I'm in the south of France working with the best band on the planet, getting paid good cash money. Come on, it was pretty cool. It was my initiation into how you can actually live rock and roll. At that point in time, the Rolling Stones were the centre of the world. I mean, I'd have been somewhat delusional, but music was very important back then. It was the heyday of music's going to change the world, all that rubbish, you know. And they were changing the world, and what a lot of people forget is they were doing it. They really were.
The Rolling Stones at the time, it's not a 5-piece band anymore. It is a 8-piece band with the horns, Jim Price, Bobby Keys, with Nicky Hopkins, and all those people, they have kids. And it's like the Rolling Stones, it's like a tribe, you know. During the night, all those musicians and technicians. During the day, all those kids. So it's impossible to separate the family life from the professional activity downstairs. The tribes goes bigger and bigger and bigger.
Running? Yeah, which amps are you coming out of? Now we are.
Everybody dance, that's going around. Where everybody do it, from the grown-ups down. You don't move your head, don't move your hands. You don't move your lips, just shake your hips.
The basement of Keith's house was, in fact, a lot of separate rooms that made up the basement. And in the end, the separation was so poor that we would have to have the piano in one room, an acoustic guitar in the kitchen, because it had tile and so it had a nice ring. There was another room for the horns, and there was one probably main studio where the drums were, and Keith's amp. And Bill would stand in there, but his amp would be out the hall.
The place was absolutely atrocious and was very, very difficult to deal with. It was so humid and the guitars would go in and out of tune all the time. Mick kept complaining about the sound and and the gear wasn't working properly and the lights would go on and off and there were fires and it was just insane.
It wasn't the best conditions at all. It was difficult for all of us. The wires would go out the door and down the hall, and all this was going into a mobile truck, and every time I wanted to communicate, I would have to run around to all the different rooms and give the message.
Have you listened to it? Well, I broke a string on that one, that has to be it, man.
A lot of Exile was done how Keith works, which is play it 20 times, marinate, play another 20. Keith's very like a jazz player in lots of ways. I mean, he knows what he likes, but he's very loose. You know, Keith's a very bohemian and eccentric, in the best terms, person. He really is.
I never plan anything. And, which is probably the difference between Mick and myself. Mick needs to know what he's going to do tomorrow, and me, I'm just happy to wake up and see who's hanging around. Mick's rock, I'm roll.
I wanted to be a hotshot record executive, and they were the Rolling Stones, you know. They had their own record label. Atlantic distributed Rolling Stones records. We got $1 an album and a big budget to produce the records. The whole deal was, can you get the Rolling Stones to make an album every year, 18 months? Because they're floating around, they're flying around. And I said, yeah, I can do that. Then I started to watch their creative process, watch how it worked. Was amazed that Keith could fall asleep while he was doing a vocal, Mick wouldn't show up. You know, I was coming from, you had to make 3 sides in 3 hours. These guys were taking 2 weeks to get one track down.
Sometimes I have an idea, I'll just throw it out and just see what happens. And this is where you get the best out of this band, is when they think that they're not working. But it's, this is just free for all. And as long as the tape's rolling, this is where you get it.
That whole period was incredibly creative for all of us. Once we got into a studio and picked up our guitars, we were in our own world. Nothing else could really get in the way.
I'm trying to make the songs up. There's a riff, there's a groove, and you're trying to make up the words, you're trying to make up a melody. And so the writing process was very, very loose.
We started off just jamming. Really casual, you know, and together. It always ended up great, you know. That was the great thing about it.
It was about as unrehearsed as a hiccup, you know. It just was, it wasn't exactly spontaneous combustion.
Place to call to Henry.
Give George Harrison my best wishes.
Yes.
Not to mention his old lady.
This was a whole different approach to music and recording from what I'd been used to, you know. Usually you know the name of the song you're playing.
And then there should be a chord progression.
One that's great on that is Ventilator Blues. We always rehearse it, and it's a great riff, but we never do it as good as that. You know, if something is not right, either Keith will play a bit different, which is not the same, or I'll get it wrong. And that's because Bobby said, why don't you do this? And I said, I can't play that. He said, yeah, it's this. I stood next to me, clapping. I just followed his time.
Where I ever had the balls to try to tell Charlie Watts where 2 and 4 words is beyond me. I've often thought to myself, son, what were you smoking or what were you drinking? And God bless his heart and patience, he listened to me. There you go, you hear it right here. I taught Charlie Watts how to play the drums.
Ever sort of said, let's make this kind of album or that kind of thing. They take on their own character once you start to get into it. Since we sort of left the country and recording in a totally different way, I just wanted to reduce it back to basics.
Keith, it's been said that the Rolling Stones gave black music back to the Americans. What were the first black musicians that turned you on to black music?
Chuck Berry, Little Richard. I guess Little Richard was the first one I heard that really knocked me out. And after that I heard Chuck Berry, and later Bo Diddley, Muddy Waters, Jimmy Reed, Slim Harpo. You know, this gets endless, but I guess the more you got into black music, the more you followed it back to where it come from, you know, until eventually you were listening to Robert Johnson, Blind Lemon Jefferson, etc. Everybody goes through it.
To me, even now, American players and singers are always the best. It is one of those sort of things that you have going, you know. It is for me, but then, you know, I'm a black American freak because that's the music I like primarily. That's really the music I love.
It was a super eclectic band. I was brought up in the 50s, you know, I like pop music, I didn't just like blues. I love blues, but, you know, I loved Elvis and, you know, but I loved, you know, crap pop music, like acoustic blues music, country music. We like everything. Plus, you've got all these other people, and you're kind of throwing this whole mishmash in.
I'd do anything in this world to please you, darling, but I won't let you run around. I'd do anything to please you, but I won't let you run around. lose your reputation, baby. Going with every man around just now.
We'd absorbed so much different kinds of music since we'd become the Rolling Stones. Maybe we missed America, I don't know, you know. Nick and I had always loved country music anyway, you know. You're playing the Midwest in 1964, 65, you ain't going to hear much else. It's the other side of rock and roll, you know. I mean, rock and roll, basically, you know, your blues, put under a little bit of white hillbilly melody. It's the coming together, it's that lovely, which music's always about. It's like, you know, one culture hitting another. Hillbillies' ideas of subject matter are like really interesting. And there's a lot of in all that music, there's a lot of things that just keen into your heart. One of the things about Exile, I think, was a lot of stuff that we'd picked up on the road and along the way sort of came out. I mean, you've drawn from whatever you've listened to since you were a child. I mean, probably some of the things I write or play are things that I listened to in 1947. Rock and roll in its basic sense is a mixture. I mean, what I've always loved about it when I thought about it is it's a beautiful synthesis of white music and black music, and it's just a beautiful cauldron to mix things up. My father was in that world. He was a race car driver, a drug smuggler, and an adventurer. And we were there for, I guess, about 3 months as Anita's long-term guests. There's a lot of downtime in Elcott. The creative process sort of happened gradually throughout the day as far as I could see. I mean, remember, I was just a kid, but people would sort of sit around and play guitars and start sort of picking little bits of music. And then late at night, they would get busy.
From the top there, lads.
The basement at night was the epicenter, and as long as we could stay awake, we were down there. It was kind of the adult area because there was a lot of drinking and smoking. There were bottles of Jack being passed around, and it was loud and a little bit scary, I think. But it was also, before it got wild, a place where we all wanted to be.
It was so loud. It was really, really loud. Went to Villefranche sometimes in the evening, and I could hear the music from Villefranche, you know. And I'm amazed that the people there were so patient, because it was always going. It was going all night. It got really hot, especially down in the basement where they were recording. It was like a sauna, dingy and dark. I don't know how they did it, quite honestly. It was really an extreme labor of love, I think, you know.
Same again, leave it a whole nother one before you come. No, Charlie don't come in till later. Vaguely later on the sea.
And Bill come in with him?
Yeah.
And don't
Nick
forget when the
and
late
MT, where does Mick Taylor go?
Where he feels it, not to...
When you feel it, Mick.
I'll give you a yell. I was saying like middle eight.
What would really happen is this. They would play very poorly for 2 or 3 days on whatever song. And then if Keith got up and started looking at Charlie, then you knew that something was about to go down. And then Bill would get up and put his bass at that sort of 84-degree angle, and you went, here it comes. They're going to go for it now. Ha, ha, ha. And it would turn into this wonderful, God-given music.
Okay, here it comes. Run up to the D and E. All right. Got your lead sheet?
All right.
Once you're into the recording, everything else is a bit peripheral. We'd be down in the basement working, and the odd time you come up to the surface, they'd be partying up there. So you never knew quite what you were going to meet. Nelcott was never empty. There was, people all over the place. Some people sprawled out and say, I can't make it home, have the couch, have the big couch, And a couple of mad French cooks that blew the kitchen up, but apart from that, there was no mayhem particularly. Fat Jacques. He blew it up, man. He was a junkie, too. He used to go to Marseille. Like, where's Jacques? It's Thursday. Oh, right, he's going to score,
I was commuting back and forth to Nelcott from all over the world, dealing with Atlantic, seeing about a worldwide simultaneous release. It became my life. When you work with the Rolling Stones, you don't last unless it becomes your life. I remember vividly, it's late afternoon, early evening, one meal a day. We'd all sit at this long, long table. We would all smoke joints and hash in between courses. We had this big bowl. Everyone would be passing it around. It was a whole new La Dolce Vita, Fellini-esque kind of lifestyle. I actually became, in my mind, like one of the Rolling Stones.
You'd be surprised what that 8.5-year-old kid sees. They see everything. They're like little owls. Obviously, there was cocaine because Dad brought it. I remember a lot of joints. We'd roll joints. That was, I think pretty much my function in life at that point was to be a joint roller. If you're living a decadent life, there's darkness there. And this was decadent. Nothing was hidden. Everything was out in the open. But at this point, this was the moment of grace. This was before the darkness. This was the, if anything, the sunrise before the sunset.
Hell yeah, there was some pot laying around. There was whiskey bottles around. There was champagne bottles around. There were scantily clad women around. Hell, it was rock and roll, son. Without it, you ain't got rock and roll.
Everybody had a great time, but it was very stressful, if you know what I mean. You were having a good time, but ready to go back home. The only one who wasn't like that was Keith, of course, who was being supplied in his mansion with the band working downstairs. Must have been heaven for him in a way.
Late again, Richards.
I don't envy you when you grow up and have to go to work for a living.
Sometimes I would wake up and I would just hear this weird rumbling from the basement and then realise that I'd slept for nearly a whole day and they was working on, But sometimes if Jimmy Miller was there and enough people to operate the machinery, I'd say, okay, let's start. But there's nobody here. I said, I'll do for now, Because like, whoever's around, and you had an idea, okay, round them up and let's go. I got happy with Jimmy Miller's on drums and Bobby Keys on baritone sax and me on guitar, and that was basically the take.
everybody would go in and out the place as they wished. So I kind of got really paranoid. It was unbelievable. I walked into the living room and there was this guy sitting on the sofa. He pulled out a bag full of smack. The whole thing kind of disintegrated and we got heavily into drugs, like breakfast, lunch and dinner. At the end especially, I thought it was cursed.
I wasn't that aware of it at the time because I was so used to it being around me. At the time, it was just Keith. It was how we worked. He's always led life his way, and you know, I don't think they cared what you thought or I thought.
I did it basically to hide. Hide from fame and being this other person because all I wanted to do was play music and bring my family up and anything. With a hit of smack, I could walk through anything and not give a damn.
So you stretched out in room 1009 with a smile on your face and a tear out in your eye. Oh, couldn't see the Carolina on you, my sweet honey love. Overdoing, changing dynasty. Making the tour out every woman that you meet. Could I think, get high on you? Sweet honey love. Need a good love, shine a light on you. Give her a song, you feel of it too. Need a good love, shine a light on you. Like an evening sun, when you're drunk in the elevator with your clothes on, and your late night friend to leave you in the cold gray dawn. Oh, just ain't too many flies on you. I just can't brush them off. Angels beating.
Middle of September, what happens? Keith and all his entourage and all these guests and friends and hangers-on are all in watching television, and someone breaks in and steals 8 guitars, 1 bass, and a saxophone of Bobby Keys, and just walks out the house, and no one even knows. That's how like loose and stupid it was out there.
There's a big group of people, and they're dependent on this creative engine, and, you know, if it starts to get out of whack and doesn't work efficiently, everyone's going to suffer in some way or another. You think you're in control of this wonderful, enjoyable lifestyle, and there's a sort of moment where you are, but then what happens is that the lifestyle starts to choose you. That's the problem.
Suddenly it was getting cold and autumn and got all of this stuff that we'd recorded in a truck in a basement. And I think Mick and I were looking at each other and saying, I think we drained it, and we drained everybody else as well, you know. There was a sort of group feeling, I think, that's it, we've done it.
I can't even remember people leaving, but they certainly left all very quickly. Me and Keith and a couple of other people were still down there, and eventually we got the word that we had to leave because we were going to get arrested.
We never got busted, and we never got thrown out. Now, did it become somewhere where we shouldn't stay? Yeah, but we never got thrown out.
I felt like an outlaw. I kind of quite like that, you know, the feeling of we can't go anywhere. I mean, you didn't have any choice. You can't get high anymore, so, you know, get another buzz.
We always went to LA to finish our records. That was sort of our modus operandi. So, yeah, we went off to LA.
It was kind of fun playing it to lots of musicians and friends in LA. Interesting to get their input, you know, because, I mean, everything that went on in Elcott was just like it was a bubble, really.
We'd never made a double album before, so we didn't quite, I don't think we were a bit naive about it. It was just a bit too much work, considering that we'd had all these pressures, plus we were just a bit burned on it. I remember Keith even saying, I'm so burnt out on this record. but we've still got loads and loads of unfinished songs. Some of them had fragmentary lyrics, and some of them had none at all. So we had a big mountain to climb. It's weird, you know, where your lyric things come from. Tumbling dice, I mean, I sat down with the housekeeper and talked to her about gambling. She liked to play dice, and I really didn't know much about it, but I got it off her, and I managed to make the song out of that. Casino Boogie would have been a song with no lyrics. So Keith and I just did this William Burroughs thing where we did all cut-ups, and I just wrote phrases and chucked them into a pile and picked them out. Yeah, anything goes here, we've got to get this done. We went to Sunset Sounds to finish the record off. My vocals had to be done, and the harmony vocals, any vocals that Keith is going to do. We did pedal steel guitars, upright bass, any extra musicians of some kind that we haven't already thought of. A lot of background vocal stuff. Those overdubs, they give the songs a complete twist. And so this LA experience is a lot about that. A little bit of those girls goes a tremendous long way. All these little jams like Just Want to See His Face that, you know, I'm going off of some religious bent, suddenly come alive and you see, well, you see, that's what I meant when I was singing it. There was a lot of material and, you know, kept throwing new things on it. I think that's always slightly bewildering. We had to choose the songs we like, choose the takes, and to sit in this room for I don't know how long and sort everything out.
They'd mix forever. Keith would do mixes and Mick would do mixes, and then they'd argue which one was the best, and it used to go on and on and on.
We needed a cover. So as you were mixing the record that you'd done, Mick and I would be looking through books just to see styles and things like that.
Charlie and I went to loads of bookshops in LA, bought loads of photographer books, and Charlie came up with this idea of Robert Frank.
Robert was perfect for that period, very American, of the 50s and 60s, very iconic.
We imagined it was going to be a photograph of the Rolling Stones, you know, stark Robert Frank imagery. Then Robert sort of said, no, he didn't see it like that. He saw doing the photography with Super 8. And I said, well, yeah, we give it a whirl.
You can see something that you wonder what the hell he's looking at. When it's done with him and finished, it will look fantastic.
I've always thought somewhere in the back of my mind that what we were doing wasn't just for now, you know. So you're sort of making the record even when you're asleep, sometimes dreaming the damn thing, you know. There might have been some sort of feeling that right now, since we've decided to move out of England, well, we better make this bloody work, you know.
Finally, it's not that thing you're stuck in a basement trying to work out what the fuck is going on. Now, we've finished this record. All you have to do is wrap it up in this gritty little package. The billboard's fantastic. It's up there, it's going to be out, and then you're on the road playing it, and it's exciting.
Mick doesn't like the finished thing. He won't like this when it's finished. He won't let you finish this. That's what he's like, you know. Mick doesn't like anything you did yesterday. Let's do tomorrow, which in one way is very good. It keeps you going forward.
I mean, it's a different kind of record. It's a very sprawling, gutsy piece of work. Criticism of Exile, it didn't have a direction. But then that's also something very laudable about it, that it exhibits all these styles, and even multiple styles in one song. Does it have tons of, like, hit singles in it? No, this isn't that kind of record.
over the years, it's just acquired a kind of magical glow. Probably because of the way it was recorded, the rawness of it, the edginess of it.
I love the tracks, obviously, you know, but I don't think we had hardly any good reviews on that album by anybody. They were all hoo-hooing it and saying it was a load of crap and it wasn't like the Stones, you know. And they all did amazing U-turns in the next few years, saying it was one of the greatest albums we've ever done.
I just wanted to make music and see how sounds are made. How do you transmit that feeling and it actually comes back out and touches people? It's been the mystery of my life and I'm still following it.
Stones, Crazy Nick, lay a couple of tickets on your friend, Nick.
The highest debuting song of the week is called Tumblin' Dice by the phenomenal rock group that Time magazine says some far-out things about. The fan allegiance is not to rock as music. It's to the Stones as a socio-sexual event.
K-Rock, Los Angeles, or Rock Revolution is happening with the Rolling Stones. Get down!
Exile on Main Street dramatically altered the vocabulary of record making. There are textures on that no one ever laid down before.
That's so crazy this was in France, because it sounded, literally, I thought every night they were in like Memphis or something like that, and they were going out and eating barbecue and partying and getting with women and, you know.
If it wasn't for this record, I would have thought the Stones just did this. But this is like peaks and valleys of creativity and expression.
I love that record because it's sort of like something that could really confuse a journalist, sort of make him rethink his whole career, because he can't box the Stones in anymore. And I mean, there's 15 directions going on at once.
I think that anybody who was cool wanted to be there while it was all happening. I would have been there. I'm sure of it.
This is almost as if you were there while they were in a room trying to pull together a song, you know? And this is almost saying, this is who we were and this is where we're going. We're not going back.
When it comes to rock and roll music, it's like, how good does it get?
It might have been some sort of feeling that right now, since we've decided to move out of England, well, we better make this bloody work, you know.
Finally, it's not that thing you're stuck in a basement trying to work out what the fuck is going on. Now, we've finished this record. All you have to do is wrap it up in this gritty little package. The billboard's fantastic. It's up there, it's going to be out, and then you're on the road playing it, and it's exciting.
Mick doesn't like the finished thing. He won't like this when it's finished. He won't let you finish this. That's what he's like, you know. Mick doesn't like anything you did yesterday. Let's do tomorrow, which in one way is very good. It keeps you going forward.
I mean, it's a different kind of record. It's a very sprawling, gutsy piece of work. Criticism of Exile, it didn't have a direction. But then that's also something very laudable about it, that it exhibits all these styles, and even multiple styles in one song. Does it have tons of, like, hit singles in it? No, this isn't that kind of record.
Over the years, it's just acquired a kind of magical glow. Probably because of the way it was recorded, the rawness of it, the edginess of it.
I love the tracks, obviously, you know, but I don't think we had hardly any good reviews on that album by anybody. They were all hoo-hooing it and saying it was a load of crap and it wasn't like the stuff, you know. And they all did amazing U-turns in the next few years, saying it was one of the greatest albums we've ever done.
I just wanted to make music and see how sounds are made. How do you transmit that feeling and it actually comes back out and touches people? It's been the mystery of my life and I'm still following it.
Stones, Crazy Nick, play a couple of tickets on your friend Nick.
The highest debuting song of the week is called Tumblin' Dice by the phenomenal rock group that Time magazine says some far-out things about. The fan allegiance is not to rock as music. It's to the Stones as a socio-sexual event.
K-Rock, Los Angeles, or Rock Revolution, and it's happening at the Rolling Stones. Get down!
Exile on Main Street dramatically altered the vocabulary of record making. There are textures on that no one ever laid down before.
That's so crazy this was in France, because it sounded, literally, I thought every night they were in like Memphis or something like that, and they were going out and eating barbecue and partying and getting with women and, you know.
If it wasn't for this record, I would have thought the Stones just did this. But this is like peaks and valleys of creativity and expression.
I love that record because it's sort of like something that could really confuse a journalist, sort of make him rethink his whole career, because he can't box the Stones in anymore. And I mean, there's 15 directions going on at once.
I think that anybody who was cool wanted to be there while it was all happening. I would have been there. I'm sure of it.
This is almost as if you were there while they were in a room trying to pull together a song, you know? And this is almost saying, this is who we were and this is where we're going. We're not going back.
When it comes to rock and roll music, it's like, how good does it get?
It's on Main Street, the